Hello. Alright, so starting off with literally the worst air dry clay I've ever worked with, Crayola air dry clay. Too bad I bought literally tubs and tubs of it before I realized I basically hated it. So now I'm just trying to use it all up. Grabbing it by the handfuls and kneading it between my two hands aggressively. Just one of the many reasons I hate this clay is that it cracks really badly, even when it's like halfway dry and even more so when it's fully dry. So to attempt to compensate for that, I added a buttload of school glue so it both sticks better to the canvas but also sticks better to itself. I'm going between using my hands and using one hand and the table to kind of roll it into snakes of clay and then press it onto the edge of the canvas. Flattening them as I go, and then doing an overall with a rolling pin. Using glue to smooth down the inner edges and tweezers to cut excess off of the outer edges. As this was my first attempt in this process, it did get a little messy, let's say. I ended up cutting the inside a bit and then pressing on it to get rid of most of the bulk. The Pop-TART texture, I'm using the back of a very thin paintbrush to add divots into it every couple of inches and then small indents in between those. Once it was fully dry, for the color of the crust, I'm using an almost light skin toned color like a beige, which I thought would be perfect, but upon trying it, it was a little bit light for my liking, so I mixed it with a little bit of brown and then yellow. Then that same brown, I mixed it with the beige. I tried it on its own with a ripped up disposable sponge to give it some toasty marks. And as I said, this was the first one I've worked on, so I had used a lightweight spackle for the topping, which posed a little bit of a challenge getting it to actually stick on. I added some more glue to the top of the canvas, and then waited for it to get a little bit tacky, and then pressed the lightweight spackle onto it with a spatula. And then manipulated it with my fingers. Using a utility knife again to make the edges more defined. And then took some pre-baked polymer clay sprinkles that I had previously made, and, well, as the name would suggest, I sprinkled them on. And pressed them in. In the end of making these bad boys, I will be adding a layer of resin on top to kind of finish them off, which will keep everything in its place. As for the next one though, I won't bore you with the crust portion again, just picture the first round again, but a little bit of a smoother process. However, I still hadn't learned from my mistake using the lightweight spackle. This one though, I added a custom purple acrylic paint to it after the spackle was dry to the touch. For the drizzle, I used some white caulking and mixed it in with 2 different shades of blue acrylic paint to make the perfect Wildberry drizzle. Nobody pronounces an L harder than a straight man looking for caulk in a hardware store. Once I had the color I wanted, I spooned it into a piping bag with a kind of medium-sized, kind of small-sized circle tip.
Oh my god. Okay.
And I iced it on. I realized really quickly that this is very hard to do the first time around and on camera. As for the next one though, I finally learned from my mistake and used plaster of Paris as my top layer. It's easier to manipulate, it sticks better, and it dries down to this beautiful hard finish. Following the same steps with the caulking and brown and yellow and acrylic paint. Still difficult to drizzle, but I'm learning. For this one, I didn't want to wait until the end to add the resin. Instead, I coated it in a layer and then added more but different pre-baked polymer clay sprinkles on it, being significantly more aware and intentional with my placement of these. It probably doesn't matter, but I didn't want too many of the same color beside or around each other, or honestly just like too many of the same color on it at all. I kind of wanted it to be the same amount, I guess, of all of the colors. Plus I wanted some actually sitting on each other. I wanted it to be so intentional that it looked very unintentional, if that makes sense. And the last one, the one whose clay failed one of the most, so I had to make it work. Adding plaster to the middle, with no demarcation line between the crust and the middle. And then adding what was left on my glove and in the tub into the cracks left over by the clay. When that was dry, I made another very long snake of clay. This one was really, really long. Mixed with maybe approximately a ton of glue into the middle and winding it out until I had a few layers of circle and made it to the end. Using glue, once again, to blend the edges. This took a little bit, definitely a little bit of time. And I ended up even cutting some pieces out and then blending it better into the canvas until it looked like an actual cinnamon swirl. Adding a similar color as the crust onto the entire thing, which you can't really tell from this view, so I added another view. With a darker brown and that same sponge as before, I added a light wash of the dark brown to all the kind of like mountain peaks, as well as around a few corners. Finally, using a very dark brown and a nail dotting tool, I added some dots to act as the baked into the entire thing chocolate chips. For the frosting, I used a white fabric puffy paint, going back and forth to create the design. And once again, finish off the entire thing with a thin coat of resin. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Bye guys.